All right, Dawkins, you can start.
Oh, you want me to introduce? Okay, we're going to have a conversation / debate today between myself and Brojo and Isaiah and Maryland on the topic of is the Bible true and is atheism rational? I've been a Christian since I'm 18. I'm in my 50s now. Brojo, you want to introduce yourself, and then Isaiah and Maryland can introduce themselves?
Yeah, sure. My name is, Josiah. I'm probably going to go by Brojo, but I've been trying to have a debate or topic on this for a little while. I've been a Christian for maybe a little over a year now. We're definitely going to be discussing, is atheism rational? Is the Bible true? That should be really interesting. All right, Isaiah, I think you can introduce yourself now.
Wonderful. What's going on, guys? My name is Isaiah. I run Atheist Academy on Instagram, so some people may know me. I'm probably sure I've debated some. If you're watching this, there's a good chance I might have debated you before. So I grew up Christian ever since I was 4 years old, and then when I turned about 16, is when I officially left my faith, and ever since I've been trying to show other people the reasons why. What motivates me to hold the worldview that I do is just the fact that, I think it's true, and I think it's important that other people know it. So, with that said, Marilyn, you can go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Okay, so obviously you guys know my name is Marilyn, and I run Atheist Teens and Atheist Academy along with Isaiah and Atheist for America, and I'm the owner of Skeptical Generation, and I've been an atheist for like a year, and I'm really passionate about talking about atheism because like many people still think we're bad people, but we're just normal people with different beliefs, and I really hope this debate goes well.
Mm-hmm. Brojo and I are Bible-believing fundamentalist Christians. We believe that the Bible is the inspired, revealed Word of God. What I'd like to know as we start this, Isaiah and Maryland, you both say that you're atheists. Could you please define specifically what an atheist is as you're going to be using that term?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important we clarify that term. So an atheist is nothing more than a person who lacks the belief in God. That's it. Okay.
Maryland, how about you?
Same thing, and atheism is not a religion, because some people do think that it's a religion, but it's not.
Okay, so atheism as you are going to be using it is merely the absence of a positive belief in God.
Correct.
Okay, good. What do you call somebody who denies the existence of God?
Someone who denies the existence of God is called an atheist.
Now you're equivocating on the word atheist. You told me you were going to be using the word atheist to be a mere absence of a positive belief.
Someone who denies the existence of God. Okay.
Well, you told me the meaning of the word atheist, as you would be using it, would be somebody who merely has an absence of a positive belief. If you merely have an absence, that does not entail a denial. So I'm asking you, what do you call somebody who denies the existence of God?
Well, I suppose you could say someone who denies the existence of God. You could call them an anti-theist.
Well, is that what you would call them? Because in the anti-theist, in the philosophical realm, is not somebody who denies the existence of God. So that would be your own proprietary definition.
Can I just jump in here and say the definition in the dictionary?
This is a conversation between Brojo, myself, Isaiah, and Maryland. Okay? I don't mind if you jump in later, but we were going to have a debate and dialogue on the issue, is atheism rational and the Bible is true. This was not meant to be a full panel open discussion.
Okay, so let me say something. Obviously, atheists, they don't deny the existence of God, because, we don't believe that He's there, so, we can't deny it. But, atheists, we aren't, 100% sure about our beliefs and stuff, so... But we are sure, we have evidence, but you can never be 100% sure about something like this.
Sure. Let me ask a question, Doc, and just hold up for a minute. Okay. Let me ask a question to Isaiah, and Marilyn. So you guys have been atheists maybe a year, 2 years now. Let me ask you, how did you arrive at that conclusion?
All right, so how did I arrive at the conclusion of atheism? It's a long journey, really. And like I said, I grew up reading the Bible. I was 4 years old when I started. When I turned 10, that's when I got deeply into it. Till I was 14, I led youth services at my church. And I mean, I was a kid who brought the Bible to school every single day in my sophomore year of high school, actually. And truth be told, what changed my mind after being a devout Christian for all that time was just I started to educate myself. I started reading other books. I started to value scientific evidence, and I think that's what changed everything for me. It's the fact that
a lack of belief is not a conclusion.
Okay, excuse me while I talk, please.
Uh,
Well, I heard a period of silence. That's why I spoke out.
Sure. How about this? So we don't go through that. All right. We're gonna have to do this then. Isaiah, try to say like something like "over." I'm done talking, so we don't interrupt each other because I don't want to sort of fight 2 minutes in the conversation. So.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So yes, as I was saying, it was my process of starting to value reason and evidence more than faith, and by educating myself and starting to read more books, I got to arrive at a better understanding of the world. And what I found is the universe around us can be explained without a God. We don't need a God to believe that we were created, nor do we need a God to believe that we have morals. All of those things can be explained with physics, with psychology, evolutionary psychology. You can explain morality. God is not necessary to prove any of those things.
What is necessary in order to demonstrate something?
You need evidence.
Okay, good. Are there any preconditions for evidence?
Explain what you mean.
Would rationality and intelligibility be a precondition for the apprehension of evidence?
Rationality?
Yes.
Would it be necessary to
Would you have to be in possession of a rational mind, and would the universe have to be rationally intelligible in order for you to apprehend evidence?
Well, I mean, yes, of course. You have to be rational in order to understand that.
Okay, good. Does your worldview, can you demonstrate that it is the case that the necessary preconditions for rationality exist, such as you invoked physics? Physics would be a subset of the uniformity of nature. Would the uniformity of nature, which we could roughly summarize as the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, and the laws of biology, would the uniformity of nature be one of several necessary preconditions for rationality in order for you to apprehend evidence?
I really don't see what you're trying to say here.
You told me that you could have evidence to explain the universe. Since you're an atheist and you lack belief in God, and that God created the world in such a way that you could know things, you believe that you can have rationality and rationally apprehend the nature of the universe, at least in part, without God. So, would the uniformity of nature be a necessary prerequisite or precondition in order for you to acquire or have rationality so you could have evidence?
Well, the way that the universe is designed in the way that it is now is what allows us to have this conversation. If the universe wasn't the way it is, we would not be having this conversation.
Okay, I don't think you understood my question. My question is the uniformity of nature a necessary precondition for rationality?
Well, yes, the way the uniformity of the universe is definitely yes. The uniformity of nature, yes, it is.
Okay,
Sure. Let me ask a
could you tell me, given the parameters of your worldview, how you can determine that it is the case that the uniformity of nature exists, other than that you just believe it?
Well, truth be told, that's the thing. What do you mean by the university of nature? Define that for me.
uniformity.
I already defined the uniformity of nature. I said the uniformity of nature could be roughly described as the set which includes the laws of physics, the laws of chemistry, and the biological laws. Now, you said that the uniformity of nature is a necessary precondition in order for you to have rationality. Now, given your worldview, since you do not start with the God of the Bible and you have a lack of belief, can you tell me how you can determine that the uniformity of nature actually exists, as opposed to the events that you observe and witness purely being a product of chance?
Okay, so that's the thing. In regards to, you're saying the uniformity of nature is the set which includes physics, chemistry, biology, etc. You're asking me how I can confirm that that exists without God?
How did you determine that it was the case that the uniformity of nature exists, as opposed to the events that we observe are the product of pure chance?
Because it can be observed and colluded by many
You're
different
going to have to
people.
wait. You're going to have to wait to the end of the discussion. This discussion is between Isaiah and Marilyn, and Brojo and myself. Okay.
Well, why should I have to wait? I'm part of the
Because
Atheist Academy.
this was what was decided on before the show went live. This is the second time I've told you.
Yeah, just hold up, Dawkins. Just give me a second. Yeah, we're having a discussion. Just real quick, and after Isaiah answers your question, I want to ask a few questions myself, and then I want them to get a chance to ask questions also.
The reason why I want to stick to that, you're more than welcome to participate when this conversation debate, whenever we put a stop to it, to join in and to converse after that and anytime later, is because when I ask people questions, I want that person to answer that question rather than have other people jump in. So I'll repeat the question again, Isaiah. You said the universe can be rationally explained without God. So given in your worldview as an atheist, can you tell me how you can determine that it is the case that the uniformity of nature exists, as opposed to all the events being the product of chance?
I don't think that all of the events in the universe are the outcome of chance to begin with.
I didn't ask you that.
I understand what you're asking me. I can confirm that the uniformity of nature exists solely because we can see and observe it. I mean, you're saying, how does it exist as opposed to it being made by chance?
Sure. Let me ask you a question. Let me see if I can reword
Well, let me just follow up, Brojo. Sure. You're stating, Isaiah, that you can actually observe the uniformity of nature, or do you actually mean that you can observe consistent events that would be true if the uniformity of nature is true? Because those are two different concepts. So are you claiming that you can actually observe the uniformity of nature, or a subset of it?
Well, again, there's many things that we cannot see. So I can observe. It's not objective. I can't see the universe objectively. Nobody can. We can only see it subjectively. So I can only see subsets of what exists inside the universe.
How do you? Sure. Okay. How do you? Okay. So then you cannot observe it. So could you tell me how you determined that it was the case, since you are, as an atheist, since you said the universe can be explained rationally without God? There are several preconditions for rationality for you as an atheist to be able to explain the universe without God. Now, the first thing that you're going to have to demonstrate that you can rationally understand and explain the universe without God is that the uniformity of nature actually exists. Now, rather than you just merely believing it, how did you determine that that was the case? Or are you just simply believing in the uniformity of nature without evidence?
No, I'm actually believing in it with evidence. Due to the scientific method, we can make a hypothesis, we can test it, and we can see that
Okay. Sure.
Okay, you cannot test the uniformity of nature. The uniformity of nature is a concept about the whole of physical reality, which is a set comprising all of the instances of physics, chemistry, and biology, that the future will be like the past. Now, this is not something that can be possibly humanly observed, even collectively, by humanity. So inferring something is the case is not the same thing as observing or testing it. Now, can you actually observe the uniformity of nature, or are you simply inferring that the uniformity of nature is true?
Sure, and then after you respond, Isaiah, I want to talk and just hold up. I want to say something too.
So again, I can't go back to the beginning of the universe and confirm that everything was how it is now in the past. That's impossible. So my conclusions are drawn upon from I would suppose the assumption that everything currently exists now the way it did in the past and works the same way.
Okay, so you're assuming it, but you don't see the uniformity of nature. So are you retracting your prior statement that you can observe the uniformity of nature? Are you retracting your statement?
Well, again, I can observe the universe as it is now. I can't tell you that I can observe.
You observe all instances in the universe?
I cannot observe all instances.
Okay, then you cannot observe all the universe. You can only observe a tiny subset. Isn't that correct? Okay, good. Now, you stated that you could rationally explain the universe without God. That presupposes that the uniformity of nature exists. Other than you inferring or assuming it, is there any means by which you can determine that the uniformity of nature actually exists? The fact of the matter is, we observe consistencies in events, and we don't observe inconsistencies in those regards. Those events are indistinguishable from chance. Now,
can I talk?
Yeah, I'll be done in a second.
Sure, and after he's finished, I want to...
Now, since you cannot observe the uniformity of nature, you're going to have to either infer that the consistency of events and the absence of inconsistencies, you infer that it's the product of a uniformity of nature rather than that it is a product of chance. But you cannot distinguish between the two in spite of the fact that you infer uniformity over chance. So explain to me how you can determine rather than just guess that the uniformity of nature is true in order for you to claim that you can rationally apprehend the universe.
Right.
So the question to you is, how can you determine in such a way that you cannot be wrong that the uniformity of nature is true rather than you just strongly believing it?
Sure, and after he responds, I definitely want to get a word in, so you just hold up for 1 minute, Doc. Let me try to respond to him. Isaiah, are you here?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure, can you respond to what Dawkins just stated?
So, yeah, he's asking me how I can be sure that the uniformity of nature is true without saying that I just believe it is.
Okay, I have an answer if you guys would like to hear it.
Sure. But let Isaiah get a chance to finish, and then you can go ahead and answer, and I'll respond to you both.
Sure.
So he says the uniformity of nature is the set which includes physics, chemistry, biology. He then went on to say that it includes everything from the future to the past. I don't understand what you're leading at with this, but
well, I asked a question. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I don't want you to.
Sure, and Dawkins, let me respond. Give him a minute. Sure. Well, let me ask you. Okay, you said
I'm still waiting for an answer to my question.
I can answer that if you like.
Well, I'd like Isaiah to answer it. When Isaiah answers it, you can answer it.
Sure. So I don't believe this without evidence. I believe that seeing consistencies in events is what allows me to believe that the universe will behave the way it did in the past.
It will?
Right. Well, let me say something. Hold up, Dawkins. So what you're doing here is you're appealing to the past and saying, well, the future is going to be like the past because the past futures have been like the past. How do you know tomorrow will be like today?
Well, we're talking about the laws of nature here, and those
Correct.
laws don't change. By definition, those
How do you
laws
know that? How do you know that?
because they're laws. They want to be laws.
Okay, that's circular reasoning, my friend.
Okay,
How do you know? How do you know? Are the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology, are they descriptive or prescriptive?
define those terms.
Okay, descriptive would merely describe what transpired in past observation. Prescriptive would mean that these consistencies not only occurred, but they will continue into the future. So are the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology that we would include as a set called the uniformity of nature, are they descriptive or prescriptive?
The laws are prescriptive.
How do you know that?
Those laws, they exist. They existed in the past. They exist today, and they will continue to.
How do you? Can you see the future?
Hold on. Dawkins.
Isaiah, can you see the future?
I cannot see the future.
So
how
wait,
can
hold
you
on.
tell me then, if you can't see the future, that these laws will continue into the future?
All right, Dawkins, give me
Because
a second. So I want to
we
say
can
something.
draw conclusions from the past to base our predictions for the future.
That's Isaiah. That's circular reasoning.
Right. Well, hold up. Let me just say something. So Isaiah, what you're saying here, this is you're appealing to induction. You're saying the future will be like the past because it's always been. That circular reasoning, it's a logical fallacy, and it does not answer the question.
It's called begging the question.
Yeah,
That's like saying,
right.
well, that's the way it's always been.
So therefore, it will continue to be that way.
Okay.
Let me ask you. How do you know? And Dawkins, let me just get a quick back and forth. I want Marilyn to speak. I know she wants to speak. So let me ask you, Marilyn and Isaiah. Marilyn, I would like for you to respond first. How do you know the future will be like the past?
Okay, so starting from the beginning, I got this definition from Google just to be sure that we're on the same page, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the uniformity of nature is the principle that the course of nature continues uniformly the same. Example, if X is the cause of Y, then Y will necessarily exist whether X exists, right?
Sure.
I've already defined the uniformity of nature for us.
Right. So we're on the same page. We're on the same page. So hold up, Dawkins.
Okay.
So now let me ask you. Now that you've defined it, we're on the same page here. How do you know? Well, let me just ask you this: is the uniformity of nature, the laws of logic, the laws that govern the universe, are they universal? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, of course they are.
Are they absolute? Meaning, are they always the case and they're unchanging? Is that
Not always, but I would say like 99% of the time when we're talking about the universe, it is.
How do you know that?
How
do you know that?
Because we see that, like...
Yeah, slow down, Beck, because it's just a back and forth here, so we'll wait till we're done. All right.
Okay, so the universe is obviously like a billion, trillion, whatever years old. We don't know exactly, but like according to what we're seeing right now, like the patterns continue. Like a proof is the black hole. Like the black hole does one thing. It expels everything that comes into it. None of this
supports the contention.
How doesn't it? For example, gravity. We're talking about gravity on Earth.
Look, let me explain. You're not understanding this. The fact that you have observed consistencies in the past and that you have not observed deviations of those consistencies does not logically necessitate that they will always continue into the future.
Correct.
When you say we know that they will continue in the past because that's the way it's always worked into the when you say we know that they will continue consistently into the future because that's the way it's always worked in the past by our observation.
For example,
that is called, let me finish, that is called begging the question. It is circular reasoning. Okay, so you're going to have to use something else in order to demonstrate that the uniformity of nature is true, other than pointing to observations of the past.
Sure. Let me give an example, Dawkins, while you're doing that. For example, if I were to say today, if you squeeze it to your toothpaste, you know it will come out. How do you know that it will happen tomorrow? Like let me ask you guys that.
That's a human function. That's not a pattern. That's
Sure.
not something that's always happening.
Sure. Okay, so let me ask you. We're gonna go back to this question. I want Isaiah to answer this. Isaiah, how do you know that the future? For example, I bet you, as an atheist, I'm sure you guys would deny the fact that Jesus walked on water because you'll say, well, it's scientifically impossible.
Brojo, let's not bring up rabbit trails. Let's stick to one issue at a time.
Right. So I was basically getting to how do you know the future will be like the past without begging the question?
Well, look, here's the thing. The future could, like tomorrow, something that has never happened before, could happen actually. The laws of physics could perhaps change, and well, we as our observations of the universe and our conclusions that we've drawn, they would have to change accordingly. However, with that said, I'm admitting that things could change tomorrow. They could, absolutely.
Well, that wasn't my question.
But wait, let me finish talking. With that said, we can be relatively sure that the laws of physics are not going to change. The laws of nature are not going to change solely because we can draw conclusions and we can determine things have not changed. They've never been.
Okay, Isaiah, you're repeating the same circular reasoning that you just said a few minutes ago. What you are just now said is called circular reasoning. We can know that they will pretty sure continue in the future because that's the way it's always been. That is circular reasoning. Okay? So you're going to have to give another answer since you said that you can rationally apprehend the universe and explain it without the existence of God. You've already conceded that the uniformity of nature must be true in order for you to do so. But you have not demonstrated through reason or argumentation how you determine that the uniformity of nature is true. All you've done is use circular reasoning. Now, other than saying that that's what we've observed in the past, do you have any other basis by which you can demonstrate to us that it is the case that the uniformity of nature actually exists apart from you merely strongly believing it?
Well, listen, it's really not my responsibility to prove that the uniformity of nature exists throughout.
Yes, it is your responsibility because you told me you could rationally explain the universe without God. Did you not say that?
I said the universe can be explained without God.
Okay, good. Can you? Okay, is the uniformity of nature a necessary prerequisite in order for you to be able to rationally explain the universe? You want me to repeat the question?
No, I'm just I'm thinking about your question.
Okay, take your time.
Sure. Let me see. Dawkins, do you mind in the next 5-10 minutes we can have everyone be able to speak? Because I know Lecco wants to talk.
Well, what I would like to do is I would like for us, when we complete the dialogue and the debate, when it's completed, everyone else jump in. Otherwise,
Sure.
It's not going to be a debate. Now, Isaiah, while he's thinking about the answer, made a stated claim that as an atheist, he can rationally explain the universe without God or the Christian God. Now, I want him to defend his claim. Now, from a Christian worldview, the Christian worldview is that nothing can be rationally explained without God. Deny God, and nothing can be rationally defended. But since Isaiah rejects the Christian worldview, and he claims that the universe can be rationally explained without God, he's already conceded that one necessary prerequisite in order to rationally explain the existence of God, the uniformity of nature, would have to be true. Now, him just believing it strongly does not mean that it is true. So he's going to have to offer some type of argument where he can demonstrate that the uniformity of nature is true rather than saying it's probably true, because saying it's probably true would also be a circular argument. So I'm waiting for Isaiah to tell us how he can determine in such a way that he cannot be wrong that the uniformity of nature actually exists as a prerequisite in order for him to rationally explain the universe without God.
Sure, Isaiah, are you ready?
So look, here's the thing. I cannot be 100% certain that the uniformity of nature is true all around, solely because I cannot see the entirety of the universe. We have a very narrow scope of it. I conceded to you that these laws, like the laws of physics, perhaps in one area of the universe they behave differently. The problem is I have no way to actually measure or see that, and so far yet.
Then how can you claim that you have the necessary preconditions to rationally explain the universe without God? Then the foundation of you claiming you can rationally explain it rests upon conjecture that the uniformity of nature is true. You just admitted that you can't demonstrate that it's true.
Well, here's the thing, Dawkins. God existing does not change any of this. Him existing just moves the goalpost to the point where now we have to ask.
No, it doesn't move the goalpost. You see, you admitted that you can explain the universe without God. That's what you said. Now, if you can explain the universe rationally without God, a prerequisite in order for you to do so is that the uniformity of nature is true. Can you defend that the uniformity of nature is true other than you have a probability guess that it might be true?
I do not have a probability guess. I have evidence to support the claim, and the evidence is the fact that we can draw conclusions from
That's not evidence. That's not evidence.
It actually is evidence, because
you're quite mistaken.
The theories that we have, the theories that exist today, exist because we made a hypothesis.
Isaiah, the observations that you made
in the universe. Excuse me, you're trying to cut me off, and I believe we agreed not to do that.
Yeah, sure. Dawkins, let him get his word out, and then
you've already covered this already. He's repeating himself.
Right. Well, just let him. If he repeats himself, just respond. Let him. We're trying not to cut each other off because we're not trying to have a hostile conversation. So just let him get his word out.
So, as I said, with these theories, we test them, and we can see time and time again that the theory never goes against what we're predicting to happen.
You're begging the question.
I have no reason.
You are begging the question. We've covered this 4 times.
All right, Dawkins, let him finish, and we'll address that he's begging the question.
Well, he needs to come up with something original rather than
interrupting.
Begging the question.
Sure. Let him answer the question. Go ahead, Isaiah.
So we can see time and time again that these theories come out exactly the way we predicted they would, and that fact alone, until something changes where that's disproven, then I have really no reason to doubt the uniformity of nature.
Sure. Now let me address that.
Okay. Hold on a second. I didn't ask you whether you doubted the uniformity of nature. You told us that you could rationally explain the universe without a God. You also agreed that the uniformity of nature is a necessary precondition. Now, I didn't ask you whether you strongly believed or if you had a reason to doubt the uniformity of nature. I said, what can you use or what can you say to demonstrate that the uniformity of nature is true other than the fact that you believe it? 5 times in a row, you used circular reasoning, saying we have observed these consistencies and we've never seen inconsistencies. Therefore, we have no reason to doubt. That does not demonstrate that the uniformity of nature is true, because all sequences could equally be explained by chance. You cannot differentiate the consistent events being the product of uniformity versus chance. Now,
Correct.
other than begging the question, using circular reasoning, saying this is what we have always observed in the past, and we've never seen any deviation, and we have no reason to doubt it, I would like for you to give us an argument that the uniformity of nature is true. Saying that you can observe it is fallacious. So do you have any way to defend that the uniformity of nature is true other than that you strongly believe it?
I really don't see how my observation defeats this, but I suppose go ahead and draw your conclusion. What are you trying to say?
Well, you told me, you agreed, that the uniformity of nature was an absolute prerequisite for rationality. Did you not agree with that?
For rationality, well, it is. I mean,
okay, good. Is the uniformity of nature is the uniformity of nature true?
Okay, the uniformity of nature is in your definition the set which includes physics, chemistry, and biology, etc.
The question is this:
is it true? Yes, absolutely. Okay, it's observable. Good. I don't really know how to get this.
How do you?
Okay, that we can see these phenomena happening. We can test them.
Demonstrate.
And we can draw conclusions.
All right. I muted you both.
Okay. Again, this is the sixth time. Please give us an argument that the uniformity of nature is true without employing circular reasoning.
Right. Now, hold up. Now, how about this, Dawkins? After he responds, let me get a back and forth with him.
Don't let him wiggle out of it.
I'm not.
Okay? Don't let him wiggle out of it because he's claiming that he can rationally explain the universe without God.
Sure. I'm on his side. Why can't I help him out?
In order for him to do so, he's got to give an argument that the uniformity of nature is true rather than he doesn't have a reason to doubt it.
Right. And I'll press him on that. But for now, let Marilyn respond until Isaiah can say something. We're gonna go back and forth on the same place. So trust me, we're not gonna get off this topic.
Does kind of sound empty.
All right, Marilyn. Do you have you want to say something?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so at the moment we can't be sure about how the universe was created. Like scientists are coming up with theories, but none of them are 100% tested. But we're gonna get there. But anyway, according to the rationality, we rely on past experience, and in particular our experience of the consistent conjunction.
Sure.
So
now let me. Oh, okay. Keep going.
This is still begging the question.
Right. Well, hold up, Dawkins. Let me address them. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it basically.
Yeah, well, okay, Marilyn, you just repeated the same thing that Isaiah did. You are begging the question. You're saying we have observed consistencies, and because we don't see deviations, therefore it will continue in the future. Well, that conclusion cannot be logically necessitated.
Right.
So
well, let me
begging the question.
Right. Well, let me just say this. Yeah, that it's a logical fallacy. To say, well, because the past has always been this way, it'll continue to be that way.
So you're going to need. Isaiah and Marilyn, you're going to need to give another argument how you can determine that the uniformity of nature is true other than either a circular reasoning or that you just merely believe it because you don't have a reason to doubt it. So how do you know in such a way that you cannot be wrong that the uniformity of nature is true? Otherwise, your claim to be able to rationally explain the universe without God rests upon an assumption for which you cannot demonstrate, namely the uniformity of nature.
I didn't say that the uniformity of nature is 100% true. I already told you, like, I'm 99% sure about it because it's logical if you think about it. But scientifically,
you're not understanding
we do not know yet.
So now, hold up.
You can't be 99% certain. Do you know why you can't be 99% certain, Marilyn?
Why
it's
not?
Because that answer is a form of circular reasoning. You are invoking probabilities, and probabilities require that the uniformity of nature be true in order to develop probabilities. So when you invoke a probability to defend the uniformity of nature, that's a form of circular reasoning. Okay? Now, that's an empty claim that you're saying you're 99% certain. That's a slogan like McDonald's, I'm loving it. So I'll ask once again, since you say that you can rationally explain the universe without God, and that rational explanation requires as a necessary precondition the uniformity of nature. The uniformity of nature must be true from within your worldview. Now, other than you appealing to the consistency of the past or that you don't have a reason to doubt it, you're going to need to give another defense that the uniformity of nature is true other than you just strongly believe it in order to support your claim that you can rationally explain the universe without God. So
Sure.
how do you determine that the uniformity of nature is true, gentlemen?
Right. Go ahead and answer that, Dawkins. I'm going to respond to them. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Okay, so 1 second.
Well, Isaiah, do you have a response while Marilyn's trying to figure Isaiah, by the way, your mic is muted. You're going to have to unmute your mic. Go back to the Hangouts app and click the mute button.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so do you have a response to how you know the future will be like the past?
Well, in terms of rationality, hold on.
I'm still waiting for an answer
Okay.
to my question.
Sure. I'm going to get there. What were you saying, Isaiah?
So here's the deal. The future, perhaps I was wrong in my original statement. The future doesn't necessarily have to be like the past in order for me to still hold the view that God is not necessary for the universe to be explained. And perhaps, it was my first time actually hearing this concept of the uniformity of nature. And hearing that, of course, it's a philosophical concept. It's not a scientific concept.
Sure.
Excuse me. The uniformity of nature is the bedrock assumption of all empiricism. Every scientist who enters into a laboratory and conducts experiments, every single one must assume the uniformity of nature. Otherwise, if they don't, doing observation, testing, and repeating is meaningless.
I suppose in that regard, I mean, it's
Okay.
important to... Okay, here's the thing.
Good. So let me ask you this. You can't defend the uniformity of nature. There are four or five other pillars of rationality that you have to cross in order to claim that you can rationally explain the universe without God. One would be that your basic cognitive reasoning is reliable. Not that all your reasoning is reliable, but your basic reasoning. Can you defend that your basic reasoning is reliable without assuming it?
Well, I hope you understand the same reasoning that allows me to believe that there is no God is the same reasoning that allows you to believe that there is. So can
You're not answering my question, Isaiah. My question is, the second pillar that is a necessary prerequisite in order to rationally explain the universe, including without God, would be that your basic cognitive reasoning, as opposed to all of your reasoning, is reliable. Now, can you demonstrate that your basic cognitive reasoning is reliable without assuming it?
I would like you to define basic cognitive reasoning, because that's
you're just your basic capacity of your mind to reason. It doesn't mean that all of your higher level reasonings, like adding up your grocery bill, will be absolutely accurate. We're just talking that you have a basic brain that is functioning reliably, and that your basic thought processes are reliable in order to make higher level conclusions. So can you make a determination in such a way that you cannot be wrong that your basic cognitive processes are reliable without assuming it?
We obviously don't have sufficient data to explain this, but...
Sure.
Okay, so two of those pillars you cannot defend. The third and fourth pillar would be that your basic sense perception and your basic memory reliability could be supported. Would you be able to demonstrate that your basic sense perception and your basic memory capacity is reliable without assuming it?
Ask the question again.
Excuse me, what do you mean by reliable?
Yeah, your basic sense perception. That doesn't mean all of your senses.
What do you mean by reliable, not the sense perception?
Right, like when you hear things or you see things, that you have a basic reliability. In other words, all of the sense perceptions that you're getting in are not garbled by, let's say, your sense perceptions. So you're assuming right now that your sense perceptions have a basic reliability, right?
You didn't define reliability.
Means that they're functioning normally and in a regular way, as opposed to purely chance and erratic.
Okay, and so by normal you mean that my sense perceptions are functioning not randomly?
Well, here's the bottom line. Since you're not familiar with these concepts, one cannot defend that their basic memory capacity and their basic sense perceptions, from a purely philosophical point of view, everyone would have to assume it because there is no way to demonstrate it. So these are four things that are pillars in order for you to be able to rationally explain the universe. The uniformity of nature, the reliability of your basic cognitive reasoning, the reliability of your sense perception, and the basic reliability of your memory. None of these four pillars can you actually defend are the case, other than the fact that you strongly believe them, or that you might claim that you don't have a reason to deny them. Now, there's a fifth pillar that's absolutely necessary in order for that must be true in order for you to rationally explain the universe without God. Those would be the laws of logic. The law of identity, A equals A, the law of non-contradiction, A cannot equal not A, and the law of excluded middle, that something is either A or it's not A. In order for you to rationally explain the universe, these laws must be universal and invariant, meaning they must be the same at all times and all places. Can you determine that the laws of logic are true at all times, Isaiah?
Okay, so we have to start, I believe we have to start from the assumption that it is, because the truth is there's no way to prove.
Okay, good. So the answer is no?
The answer is no, actually.
Okay, good. So you cannot, there are at least 5 pillars that are necessary prerequisites in order for you to rationally explain the universe. These pillars you cannot defend?
We currently can't, but maybe in the future we can, because
Isaiah,
we don't have enough proof.
Okay, so do you say that you can or you cannot defend these 5 pillars that are necessary for rationality, Isaiah?
Scientifically? Oh, okay, sorry.
So, Isaiah, can you defend that any one of these 5 pillars that are necessary for rationality, can you defend that they are true other than you strongly believe them or don't doubt them?
No, I cannot actually, because...
Okay, good. Then you cannot claim you can rationally explain the universe, because when you claim you can rationally explain the universe, it rests upon a foundation of assumptions that you have just conceded that you cannot defend.
Okay. So, all right. I think that... hold up.
You see, atheists say they reject belief in God, or they have a lack of belief in God because of insufficient evidence or reasons. Okay? Well, I'm waiting for a brojo. Since there's dead air, I'm going to fill it. Okay? Don't quote the Bible. Well, why should I submit to your commands, Paul? Okay. Now, Isaiah wants to assert that he can rationally explain the universe, yet he cannot give a defense that the necessary preconditions for rationality actually exist, other than he believes them.
Yeah.
Well, you're starting, truthfully, you're starting to sound like a sophist, and
No, I'm not a sophist. I'm a fundamentalist Christian.
No, you sound like a sophist, to be honest.
No, I'm not a sophist. I'm a fundamentalist Christian. That in order to rationally explain the universe, the Christian God must exist as he is defined and described, and construct a world in such a way that we can know some things in a way that we cannot be wrong. If you reject that worldview as an atheist, you're going to have to defend the 5 pillars of rationality, and you have conceded that you can't.
No, well, you're so wrong.
How do you know that your Christian God exists, and could you give us a reason to believe that?
Oh, I'll be glad to discuss that, but I want to make it clear to the viewing audience. Have you thrown in the towel, so to speak, that you can defend the 5 pillars of rationality when you claim that you can rationally explain the universe without God?
Well, at this point, I do not have the knowledge to combat the situation solely because these philosophical terms are foreign to me. So I will have to do more research on my end. But
Well,
for the
this
moment,
is not fancy philosophical nomenclature. The uniformity of nature is simply a term that encompasses the laws of physics, chemistry, and the laws of biology. That basic cognitive reasoning is not a fancy $10 philosophical term, nor is our basic sense perception or our basic memory reliability, or for that matter, the law of non-contradiction.
I'm back.
Okay? So the bottom line is this: have you conceded that you can defend that the 5 pillars of rationality actually exist other than you believe them?
Again, I don't have the ability to go through and defend these pillars, so I'm not going to.
Then you have to retract your claim that you can rationally explain the universe without God, because you need those 5 pillars to be true.
Or I could retract the claim that I cannot rationally explain the universe.
And then you can't rationally explain anything, and that would mean that your conclusion of a lack of belief isn't rational either.
Right.
Well, that's not true. That's actually not true.
Okay, good. Do you have the necessary preconditions for rationality in order to evaluate whether or not God exists?
Well, the fact of the matter is I'm a rational creature capable of making
That's not answering my question. Can you defend the 5 pillars of rationality, that those 5 pillars actually exist other than you strongly believe them, in order for you to claim that you can be rational? You being rational depends that the 5 pillars of rationality actually exist. Do they not, Isaiah?
Correct.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Okay, when you claim that you can be rational, in order for you to be rational as you claim, must the 5 pillars of rationality necessarily exist?
In order for me to be rational, I have to, well, it's important for the past to continue into the future. My senses need to work pretty much basically.
Must the 5 pillars be true in order for you to be rational about anything?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay, good. Can you defend that they are true?
Not currently.
Okay, good. Then your case that you can be rational about anything rests upon a foundation for which you cannot demonstrate.
Okay.
Therefore, you cannot claim that your atheism is rational.
Well, given the assumption that it is true, I can, actually.
Okay, but you see, you're being arbitrary and inconsistent because you want something other than assumptions in order to believe something. Isn't that correct?
Well, here's the thing. I cannot. There's no way of actually knowing if I'm irrational. It's something that you have to assume, and everybody assumes that they're rational creatures. Everybody. The 5 pillars that you're speaking of, everybody has to have that basic assumption in order to proceed with.
How do you know that? What if the Christian God? Is it possible that the Christian God exists?
It is possible that the Christian God exists.
Okay, good. If it's possible that the Christian God exists, the Bible describes and defines that God has made us to innately know these types of 5 pillars. So if God makes us, if the Christian God exists as he is defined and described, and he has made us to innately know these things, whether or not we can articulate them, such as the uniformity of nature, the laws of logic, our basic cognitive reliability, if these are an innate endowment by the Christian God, then everyone does not have to assume them. So your statement saying everyone has to assume them falls on 2 areas. One, you'd have to demonstrate that the Christian God doesn't exist. Number 2, you'd have to tell us how you can, from given your finite limitations, you can make a universal declaration.
Actually, I believe you're incorrect with that statement. The thing is, you need to provide evidence that your Christian God exists, because we don't
I didn't assert to you that he existed.
We don't start from the assumption that the Christian God exists. Nobody does. In fact, when you're born into the world, you don't believe any God exists.
Okay, how do you know that? Okay,
I know that because I know
you
that.
don't know that. No, you don't know that. You're conjecturing.
No, I'm not conjecturing. I'm saying that you can look at the.
Are you a mind reader? Can you read people's minds?
Excuse me. You can look at the evidence and determine that if someone is born in, let's say, North America, then
no, stop right there. How do you have the capacity?
Why are you cutting me off? I believe we
other people's minds
3 times, Dawkins. Why are you cutting me off?
What you're doing is you're going down a rabbit trail.
So I don't understand why.
All right, hold up. All right, Dawkins, I muted you for a second. Isaiah, you made a statement that I would like for you to address.
Yeah.
And Dawkins, please don't cut him off. Please don't cut him off.
That's why I interrupted, because you're going down a rabbit trail.
Right. I understand, but let me ask him this. Okay, you just said when everyone is born, they don't believe. Let me ask you, how did you determine that was the case?
Because we, if you understand anything about the human mind, we're not born with ideas already in our minds. Everything that we pick up, we have to observe in our daily lives, and our cognitive.
How did you determine that was true?
Because that is something that can be actually measured. That's something.
No, it cannot, because you'd have to be a mind reader.
No, you don't have to be a mind reader.
Isaiah, you are speculating, and you're saying your speculation can be measured. You just told me that it's possible that the Christian God exists as he is defined and described. If it is the case that it's possible that the Christian God exists, then the Bible says that God has made all men everywhere to know that he exists, and that would contradict what you're saying.
Okay,
now,
and how do you know that?
If that's possible, you have said if it's possible, then that would contradict what you were saying. In order for you to make that universal claim as a fact, you would have to refute the possibility of the Christian God.
No, excuse me. I don't. It's possible.
Yes, you do. Because if it's possible that it's true, then your universal statement
Dawkins.
is wrong.
Right. Hold up. All right.
There are thousands of gods that mankind has believed in throughout history. Okay, I conceded that it's possible for your Christian God to exist. It's a possibility.
Good, then that would contradict your universal statement.
For any other God
that would contradict your universal statement. When you make a universal statement, if there's a possibility that it's wrong, then you cannot make an ironclad universal statement.
I think that's just a load of shit.
No, that's not a rebuttal. You said it's possible that the Christian God exists, right? Now, if it's possible, then that would if the Christian God does exist, that would contradict your universal statement about the tabula rasa of the human mind in babies and toddlers.
Okay,
but you don't know. But you don't know that the Christian God does not exist. You have a lack of belief. Therefore, your universal statement could be wrong.
Okay, and yes, that's true. Now, the thing is, there's no reason for us to believe that your Christian God does exist.
It doesn't matter. It's still
if
possible.
Your Christian God does exist, and it is possible that I'm wrong about the tabula rasa and the fact that humans are born as a blank slate.
You understand that when you make a universal statement, you have to support it?
It's possible that the Christian God exists. That's not me saying that he does. That's me saying there's a possibility. It's a very low possibility.
When you make a universal statement, you have to back it up.
But with that said, it's also possible that Allah exists. It's possible that Zeus exists.
You're changing the subject, Isaiah.
I'm not changing the subject.
You made a universal.
What I meant when I said that it is possible
Isaiah,
for your Christian God to exist.
Isaiah, when you make a universal claim as a skeptic, you have already admitted that you do not know that it is the case that the necessary preconditions for rationality exist. Yet you are assuming that those conditions exist to rationally make a universal claim. Now, you have not been in all times and all places. You have not examined the minds of everyone who has existed or will exist. You are making an unfounded universal claim that you cannot actually show is the case.
Dawkins, I can tell you this. We can observe evidence from thousands of cases of nobody having any foreknowledge of religion when they're born.
Okay, hold up, Dawkins, hold up.
Why do you talk over me? Dawkins, I'm going to stop talking if you talk over me.
Dawkins, don't talk over him.
I will stop talking if you talk over me one more time.
All right. Well, let me address what you just said. That is an inaccurate statement because, I don't even want to get into why that's inaccurate, but go ahead and continue.
Okay. So the question is, we were talking about the fact that children are not born knowing the Christian God. Okay, children aren't born knowing the Christian God because when children are born at the age of 9 months,
I didn't say that.
Their brains aren't even
I didn't say that.
Hold up, Isaiah.
I didn't say children were born knowing the Christian God.
Yeah, he never said that.
I said if the Christian God exists, then all men know of God's existence. I didn't say they knew the details of the attributes of the Christian God, but setting that aside, you are making a universal statement. Now, you are not a mind reader, okay? Therefore, when you are making universal claims about the nature of the human psyche, you are speculating and conjecturing about something that you cannot demonstrate is the case.
Dawkins,
go ahead.
How do you know that the Christian God exists?
Because the Christian God has revealed himself.
And how has the Christian God revealed himself?
He has revealed himself in three forms: natural revelation, innate revelation, and special revelation.
And can you expand upon those three forms?
Yes. Natural revelation, as it is described in Romans 1, that all men know that God exists when they just merely look upon the creation. They can discern his eternal powers from what they see. In addition, God has also given innate revelation that they know God exists in their mind through the Holy Spirit, as it has been revealed in special revelation. Now, if you reject that it has been revealed, then you're going to have to tell me from your worldview, how are you able to determine that anything is the truth? Will there be a final authority that you appeal to? Will you use let me finish. You have three options in order to demonstrate that something is true if you reject that the Christian God has revealed himself. Then you're going to have to appeal to some external absolute authority that would not be the Christian God in order to prove the Christian God. So you're going to have to appeal to, 1, a final authority, 2, you're going to have to employ an infinite regress, or 3, you're going to have to start from an unjustifiable, unprovable axiom. Since you reject that the Christian God has revealed himself, could you please tell me which one of those 3 things you use to demonstrate that anything is true in reality, Isaiah?
But I think we're getting off topic. I asked you.
No, it is on topic. I explained it to you. The way you determine the way that anything is.
Asking you a question.
I'm answering it. I'll be brief. Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. The way we know that the Christian God exists is because in order to know anything in such a way that we cannot be wrong, is that there must be an absolute final authority that is omniscient and omniscient and always truth revealing, and if that is denied, there will be no means at your disposal that you can appeal to determine that anything is true, unless you want to tell me that you have another final authority that is omniscient and omnipotent and to construct the world in such a way that you can know something that you cannot be wrong. Now, since you reject that the Christian God's revelation is self-authenticating and self-attesting, then by what means can you determine that anything is true, Isaiah?
Well, Dawkins, here's the thing. I determine that things are true based upon evidence. Okay, so
Okay.
like we
Is your
discussed
basic reason
before,
reliable?
like we discussed before, it does have to come from the assumption that I am a rational creature.
So you
Uh,
can't determine it's true. You're assuming it.
However, well, like I said, everybody has to make this assumption. This is an
Okay,
assumption that
well, that's an
everybody
assumption
makes.
what you just said right there. Is that true, Isaiah?
Well, yes, everybody assumes they're rational creatures.
Okay.
Everybody
And
assumes.
how do you determine what is true? How do you define what is true?
Well, we have to start. Okay, like I said, we cannot
What
start
is the
from
truth? Isaiah, what's your definition of truth?
truth to me is knowing how things are objectively in nature.
And how would you do that being a finite subjective being?
Well, to me, I believe it's important to have evidence to substantiate a claim.
How do you, as a subjective finite being, determine objectively the nature of reality in such a way that you cannot be wrong?
It's only through science, and Dawkins, I hope you understand. I'm not saying that there's no way.
Is science the only way to knowledge of truth?
Science is the best epistemology we have.
Okay. Okay. Good. Is the scientific method the only way to know truth?
I wouldn't say it's the only way, solely because I'm sure there's other ways.
Okay.
I'm saying it's the best.
Okay. Good. Does the empirical methodology in science rest upon the untestable assumptions?
Yes.
Okay, are you aware of the fact that no conclusions in science are determined to be true? All conclusions in science are tentative and are subject to revision based upon future observations. And the famous scientific philosopher Thomas Kuhn said that we form conclusions based upon a web of beliefs, and those web of beliefs cannot all simultaneously be tested. Therefore, no conclusion in science can actually be considered truth. It can only be a tentative conclusion. So, since all conclusions in science are tentative and are not declared to be absolute truth, by what means can you, as a skeptic, determine that anything is true?
Well, I mean, then we come to it doesn't necessarily have to be I can determine what is true or God exists. It could be.
Well, I asked you the question, how do you determine that something is true other than you merely assuming and believing something?
Well, I'm not assuming or believing. Again, I told you this is how I believe things are true. I use the science.
I didn't ask you how you believe. I said, how do you determine that anything is true, Isaiah?
By using the scientific method.
The scientific method cannot declare anything is true.
Well,
So
Dawkins,
what means do you use to determine that something is true, that it is in accord with the reality in such a way that you cannot be wrong?
the conclusions that science gives us, it can be tentative. However,
they are tentative. They're not can be. They are tentative.
Okay, they are tentative.
Okay, good. So what means do you have to determine that anything is true in such a way that you are not wrong?
Well, I don't, and I actually never claim to never be wrong.
Therefore, everything you say cannot be determined to be true. Is that correct?
Sure.
Is that correct? That there is nothing that you say that can be determined to be true in such a way that you cannot be wrong?
That is true.
Okay, good. Therefore, everything you say is a guess because you cannot determine that it is true.
That is not true.
Okay, good. Then you just told me that you can't determine anything is true in such a way that you cannot be wrong. In order to determine that something is not true, you have to know that there is a state of affairs that is true that contradicts something else in order to say that it is not true. Can you determine, now listen very carefully to the question, can you determine that any states of affairs is true in such a way that you cannot be wrong.
Go ahead, Isaiah.
No, I don't believe I can.
Okay, good. Therefore, whatever you say, regardless of the intensity of how much you believe it, is not something that you can demonstrate it is true. It is just simply something that you believe.
Okay, but what I believe is, well, it's more like a probability, I would say.
Probability is dependent upon the assumption of the uniformity of nature, and you cannot demonstrate the uniformity of nature, so you can't claim it's a probability.
Okay, but Dawkins, we run into this problem. I asked you, how do you know the Christian God exists? You told me that the Christian God, you know the Christian God exists because he has revealed himself, and then you gave me three reasons, 3 ways that he revealed himself. You said he revealed himself naturally because all men know just by looking at the universe. He revealed himself innately, which means the Holy Spirit has just given people the knowledge. And you also said that he revealed himself in a special way, which you did not define.
I said special revelation in the Bible.
Special revelation. Can you define what special revelation is?
Yeah, I just did, the Bible.
Okay, the Bible. But you never went through and actually explained how you know that these things are true. Like, how do you know that all men know by looking at the universe? How do you know that the Holy Spirit has given people this knowledge? And how do you know that?
The answer is because God has revealed it. Because without God, there is no means by which you can determine that anything is true.
So how do you know that this is the correct God?
Because he revealed it.
Oh, so wait, you know that the Christian God exists because he revealed it, and you know that...
That's correct. That's my starting point.
Okay, so wait, but it sounds like you were going in circles, though, because if you know that the Christian God exists because he revealed it...
Actually, you're quite correct. When I say to you, how do I know it? When I say the Christian God revealed it, when you say that it's circular, you're absolutely correct. But you want to know why that's not a problem?
Sure. Explain to me why you don't.
The reason why that's not a problem is in order for there to be something to be determined to be true, there has to be an absolute authority at a stopping point by which there can be no other authority that is omnipotent and omniscient and always truth revealing. If that is denied, then there is no means by which anything can be determined to be true. So any ultimate authority that one might choose, that authority would have to be self-authenticating and self-attesting in a circular way. To reject and deny that, then all you're going to be left with is starting from an unjustifiable assumption of an axiom. Okay?
Which axiom?
Any axiom people choose. Axioms or postulates, I don't know if that would be the correct term, or a properly basic belief, would be beliefs for which you cannot justify, you cannot give a rational basis for, because they cannot be justified. Okay? Now, you've got a choice. You have 3 options. It's called the Munchausen's trilemma or Agrippa's trilemma. Either you're going to have to know something in such a way that you cannot be wrong by employing a circular argument such as a final authority that would have to be omniscient and omnipotent and always truth revealing, or you're going to have to reject that and appeal to an infinite regress of justification, which would not be possible humanly, or you're going to have to, after rejecting those 2 options, select the third and final option and start from a starting point for which you assume which you cannot justify.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. The first premise is that there's a final authority that we have to, who is omniscient and omniscient. Did he say omnipotent?
Omniscient, omnipotent, and always truth revealing.
Always truth revealing. Okay, so here's the problem. There's no final authority to be omnipotent and omniscient.
I'm sorry, could you hold on a second? You're breaking up. Can you get a little closer to your mic and go back 2 sentences?
Yes. Can someone mute their mic? Everyone, actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Dawkins, I'm gonna actually.
All right, hold on. I'll mute mine.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. There's no echo. So, you said that there must be a final authority who is omnipotent and omniscient, and always truth-revealing. The problem that I have with that is the fact that it's impossible to be omnipotent and omniscient at the same time.
Okay, all right. Let me stop you right there. Let's discuss that. Let's discuss that. Now.
Say something, Doc, because I haven't said anything in a while. Let me address this real quick. Because I've dealt with atheists who make this very clear. Isaiah. And how about this? I'll even open this up to everybody in here just real quick and then close it back down. How would it be impossible for the God of the Bible to be both omniscient and omnipotent?
Well, if okay, let's pretend it's the God of the Bible. It's impossible for him to be all-knowing and all-powerful at the same time, solely because if he was, he would then be incapable of changing his mind.
Yep, I've heard the same argument.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Do you define omnipotence as having no limitations?
Correct.
Okay, good. Do you understand that that is an incoherent definition?
No,
it cannot exist any more than a married bachelor can exist. An incoherent statement. All right.
How is that incoherent?
I'm sorry. I was just distracted by somebody in the house. Could you repeat the statement again?
I asked you how is incoherent?
Oh, when you define omnipotence as being able to have no limitations, it's an incoherent statement because it would be self-refuting, just like saying, can God create a rock so big that he can't lift it? It's a self-refuting statement.
Right.
Yes,
So when you say that God cannot be omnipotent because omnipotence entails no limitations, defining omnipotence with no limitations is an incoherent notion.
So what is omnipotence?
Well, the Christian view of omnipotence is defined by theologians is that God is able to bring about any state of affairs that he desires, and that is not contrary to his nature.
Correct.
And where are you getting that?
That is how biblical theologians generally define omnipotence.
Now hold up, Dawkins. Hold up, Dawkins. You're making a lot of bad echoing. Maybe you got to come back or drop out, come back and fix your microphone, but something's really going on. Now I just want to inform, and I hate to laugh, I'm not trying to be rude, guys. Veckel, the argument that Isaiah just employed is the same argument Jay Curter is using. The argument that God cannot be omnipotent and omniscient because they would be contradicting because he wouldn't be able to change his mind. And we're basically getting ready to tackle that idea.
Okay, well, I would love to see you tackle that idea, but it's a
okay, Veckel, do you want to say something about that?
Where
you can say that omnipotence.
Where are people getting this idea that if a God is omnipotent, that he can't be omniscient at the same time? I really don't understand that line of logic.
It's because it's an impossibility. Those things are mutually exclusive. You can't be all-knowing and all-powerful.
Okay, well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with
here's
the problem with your view. You're assuming the laws of logic in your worldview. Okay,
that makes absolutely no sense.
Yes, and you are saying that some unproven entity has given them to you. So
okay, no. Okay, well, again, that's another discussion that we already covered. I will be glad to go back to that. But when you say something is impossible, you are saying that something is absolute. Is that correct, Isaiah?
define absolute?
Okay, you said something is not possible. That's an absolute statement. Correct?
Define absolute. You're not.
Absolutely. Hold up, Dawkins. Absolutely.
If I say it is impossible for me to fly, simply moving my arms up and down, I absolutely cannot fly unaided. Okay? So when you make a statement that something is impossible, that is an absolute statement about something. Now, I'd like to ask you, how can you, as a finite being, who you conceded earlier that you cannot determine that anything in actuality is true, how can you assert that anything is impossible when you conceded that you cannot determine anything is true?
Well, as I said, I use probabilities here, and I
okay,
can be
probabilities assume the uniformity of nature.
approximately entirely sure that something is true or is not.
Probabilities assume the uniformity of nature, and you conceded you couldn't demonstrate the uniformity of nature.
Okay, again, so you assume that God has granted this knowledge to you.
Okay, you're changing the subject now. You made a claim that something is impossible. Now explain to us how you can determine that something is impossible and that is true from your worldview.
We've had this discussion, Dawkins.
Well, do you not want to answer the question? Because I don't think you can answer it. You stated that something is impossible. That's an absolute statement. Is that statement true, Isaiah?
Just keep saying you've had the argument before.
All right, let him answer. Is that statement that something is impossible, is that true?
Right, and Dawkins, let me get a back and forth with Isaiah after he answers.
Dawkins, here's the deal. I cannot tell you what is true in life. That's beyond my ability.
Oh, the Dawkins is getting a phone
I don't
call
know
from
the universe objectively, so I cannot tell you.
Okay, good. Then you can't. Good. Then you have to retract your statement that something is impossible.
Then that would actually mean that I have to retract every statement that I ever make.
You have to retract the statement that something is impossible.
Or you could repent and come to faith in Jesus Christ as your Savior.
Well, let's go back to the issue of omnipotence and omniscience.
Yes.
Since
because
omnipotence is
Dawkins, I was actually asking you this question. Where are you getting this knowledge from that being omnipotent means that you could do whatever God can do whatever He wants to do, whatever He thinks is right.
This definition, although it may not be worded exactly the same way, sums up which is nearly universally held by most biblical fundamentalists. We do not define omnipotence to entail no limitations, because defining omnipotence as no limitations is an incoherent definition. The reason why I say it's incoherent is not because it's not meaningless, but because it is a self-contradictory concept. There are two different types of incoherencies. One where a statement would not be intelligible or meaningful, and the other one would be a logical contradiction. So if we say that God's omnipotence is that it entails no limitations, then that means an omnipotent God can fail. That is a logical contradictory statement. Okay? So Christians and biblical theologians do not define omnipotence as having no limitations. The biblical God does have some limitations. He cannot lie. He cannot deny himself. He cannot create a world that contradicts his own nature. So omnipotence for the biblical God means that he can bring about any state of affairs that he actually chooses or desires to bring about. Therefore, there is no contradiction between a biblical concept of omnipotence and omniscience. But even worse for you, In order for you to argue that the biblical God cannot exist because it is self-contradictory, you're going to have to establish that the law of non-contradiction is absolute and universal. Okay?
Correct.
Now, Isaiah, real quick, Isaiah, can you determine that the law of non-contradiction is true in that it holds in all times and all places, Isaiah?
Can you define the law of non-contradiction for me?
The law of non-contradiction says A cannot equal not A, which means that it is universal, that it is true in all times and all places, not merely what we observe to be the case, that we don't observe that actual contradictory states of affairs exist. Now,
Correct.
in order for you to even launch an attack upon the God of the Bible, saying that he is a contradiction, you are presupposing the law of non-contradiction from within your worldview. So, Isaiah, can you demonstrate that contradictions are invalid in all times and all places, or is that just simply something that you believe but you can't defend?
Give me a moment, Dawkins.
Sure, I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
Can you defend that it is true that the law of non-contradiction, that A cannot equal not A in all times and all places? Because you're going to have to defend that in order to mount an attack upon the Christian God that he is a contradiction, because that presupposes that contradictions are invalid.
Sure. Now, after you answer that, Dawkins, I do want to get a few words in.
All right, I'll mute my mic.
Right. So.
Well, regarding the law of non-contradiction, again, I've claimed this many times. I'm not a person who has seen the entire universe, but according to the laws which do exist, I could say that yes, it's impossible for A to equal not A.
Okay. How do you know? How do you know that? Okay. Yeah, that's begging the question. How do you know that that's the case?
Right.
And it goes along with. I mean, you just said it's impossible for God to I don't know. What did you say? It's impossible for God to.
I'm still, Isaiah, I'm still waiting for you to explain how you know that the law of non-contradiction is true at all times and all places.
Yeah, Dawkins, let me press him on this because I want to speak for it. Give me 5 minutes, and then if I can't answer, I'll say Dawkins, and I want you to respond. So, all right, now, Isaiah and the other atheists in here I guess you guys can answer this. Is the law of non-contradiction absolute? Let me ask you guys that.
The law of non-contradiction has never been demonstrated not to be true, and therefore.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to ask the question again.
That's a fallacy.
Right, but let me because you didn't answer my question. Let me ask it again. Is the law of non-contradiction absolute?
There's no way for me to make that claim.
Okay, let me ask again. So
your argument against God collapses.
Correct.
I don't see how, actually.
Well, yeah, you're presupposing it when you say the Christian God cannot exist because he possesses two contradictory attributes. You are saying that contradictory states of affairs cannot exist. You are presupposing the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction would have to be true in order for you to mount the argument that God has mutually contradictory attributes.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay, Dawkins. Okay, here's the deal. It's like this. You cannot be. You said this yourself. You cannot be a married bachelor. It just doesn't work.
No, you're confusing. You're confusing definitions. That was just given. That was just an illustration. That's a definition. Okay, we're talking about actual states of affairs rather than mental states of defining something.
Red cannot be blue ever.
Okay, stop.
A cannot be not A ever.
Right.
No, how do you know that? How do you know that, Isaiah?
Hold up. Okay, the moderator is currently leaving. If it goes off air, we'll continue discussion off air. So everyone who's watching,